Hello and welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you very much for joining me this morning for this special edition of the program. On Thursday, the 1st of June 2023, His Excellency Ambassador Dennis Francis was elected as President of the United Nations General Assembly. Mr. Dennis, who has had almost a 40-year career as a diplomat representing Trinidad and Tobago all across the world, including in Geneva and Paris, takes up this position as he goes forward with his theme, Peace, Prosperity, Progress and Sustainability. It's certainly something that all Trinbagonians could be proud of and could celebrate in. Congratulations to His Excellency Ambassador Francis, as well as to the Honourable Dr. Amory Brown, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. In fact, that is how we start our program this morning, as I welcome Senator the Honourable Dr. Amory Brown to join us as we discuss the role of Ambassador Dennis Francis going forward as President of the United Nations General Assembly. Dr. Brown is with us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Minister. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Keaton. It's very good to be here. Thank you for your focus on this excellent achievement by His Excellency Dennis Francis and Team Trinidad and Tobago, which would have been part of the effort to ensure our campaign's success.
Certainly. Well, this particular election, does it underscore Trinidad and Tobago's role in the international arena, as well as its commitment to promoting peace, prosperity, and human rights as it assumes this position?
Well, you framed it very well. This success really underscores Trinidad and Tobago's strong profile in the international spaces. We've been a member of the United Nations for 60 years now, and we've used that time quite well over the years in ensuring nationals of Trinidad and Tobago have been playing key roles at the UN and at other international fora over the years. As you know, we through E.N.R. Robinson, been founding members of the International Criminal Court. Through Lennox Bala, we've had key roles at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, Justice Anthony Luckey, Sir Ellis Clark. We've really punched above our weight class over the years. We've had several judges serving at the ICC, ICJ, many other international fora. So Trinidad and Tobago's profile is well known, and with this election to the presidency of the General Assembly for the 78th session, that profile gets much stronger. That brand is elevated even further. And I dare say doors will be further opened in the future with this success for additional nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who wish to serve, who wish to carry their nation's brand and identity across the globe. So it really is good news. Ambassador Francis and the team ran a very strong, thorough, comprehensive campaign. We've given the theme, Peace, Prosperity, and Sustainability. But it was not just about the elaboration of a theme. It involved a lot of hard work and very strategic efforts, supported, of course, by the cabinet, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, but really executed by a multidisciplinary team that knew what it was doing and ultimately achieved the objective.
Mm-hmm. Certainly excellent news, Minister Brown. However, as His Excellency Ambassador Francis assumes his position at the 70th sitting of the General Assembly, it comes at a time where countries across the world are recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, dealing with issues of climate change, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and of course there is the Pact for the Future. Is the next year crucial to strengthening the credibility of the United Nations, as Trinidad and Tobago plays a keen role actually in those systems to deal with such challenges?
Again, you you framed it perfectly. The next year is absolutely crucial, both with respect to the United Nations and with respect to a number of challenges that the international community would be facing. We live in very difficult times. The world is more polarized today than it has been for many decades. There are multiple conflicts that are ongoing that must engage the attention of the General Assembly, as well as, of course, the United Nations Security Council. And leadership is critical at these times. We did not offer Ambassador Francis in a light fashion. He was identified as our candidate, specifically because of his experience and his attributes. We believe that he has characteristics that the international community will benefit from at this time. He's an excellent mediator. He's a very keen strategic thinker, strong in communication, and really is able to build consensus in spaces and fora that others would struggle in. So Ambassador Francis, we strongly believe, is the man for the job. Additionally, he comes from us. He was raised and nurtured in an environment where, as you know, we have great diversity, but also great tolerance and harmony, notwithstanding the diverse origins. And some of those traits and characteristics and that incubator would be very useful in treating with this polarized world at this time. So yes, Ambassador Francis has a tough job on his hands. President-elect Francis, he's currently working on building a team that can assist and support the duties of the presidency. We are working with him in that regard, and we've gotten excellent support from some of our partners in the international community. But bear in mind the role of the President of the General Assembly. He not only presides over the general debate on matters of great importance before the international community, but he also sets the theme of the general debate, arranges thematic debates, makes proposals for high-level meetings on specific issues. So really, it's not just about a ceremonial role at all. And a president can help set priorities and must help set priorities for the work of the 78th session. That's very relevant to us. As a small island developing state, that's very relevant to CARICOM. It's very relevant to the OACPS and the G77, the developing world. And really, what is called upon is Ambassador Francis, President-elect Francis, must really be a man for all people and all seasons. We believe he's the right man for that task.
Well, you just mentioned it goes far beyond a ceremonial role. In fact, the Assembly considers current issues as via debates organized by the President of the General Assembly, as well as conducting informal consultations towards the adoption of new resolutions. I mean, it is understood that President-elect Dennis Francis holds no voting powers, but how does Trinidad and Tobago, at the helm of the United Nations General Assembly, navigate proceedings without compromising the state's diplomatic positions and agendas?
Well, certainly with Ambassador Francis being the president-elect, Trinidad and Tobago's representation at the General Assembly will have to be fine-tuned because, yes, we now have a son of our soil in the chair, but we also have to ensure our ongoing consistent representation and participation. I've already given a note of alert to our cabinet and to elements here in the country that during high-level week and throughout the 70th session and even beyond, there would be an expectation of increased participation, of key government ministers, such as the Minister of Health, on health-focused areas, etc. And there will be more of a spotlight on Trinidad and Tobago during this period. So it's incumbent on us, one, and we've already started doing it, to strengthen our team at the permanent mission of the United Nations, but two, to also ensure that our participation from headquarters, from Port of Spain, in the work of the UN during this session is as strong as it has been and deepened even further. So all of that is in train at this time, but bear in mind that with our nation in the chair, there's very likely to be an increased desire on the part of influential members of the UN to consult with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on major international issues. We are likely to see more high-level visits to Port of Spain, and the profile and the prestige of this country is certain to be elevated. That puts us in the spotlight, and I believe that that is a spotlight that we should relish, because we have the characteristics to really fulfill expectations, positive expectations in this regard. Bear in mind that Guyana is also coming into a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council with the culmination of their campaign for that particular position. We have several other CARICOM member states and members of BRULAC that are well positioned. Cuba is in the chair of the G77. So really in astronomy, we have something called a conjunction, where the planets align, or sometimes the planets align with the stars from the perspective of Earth. And I really do see the potential for a very positive conjunction coming out of CARICOM, coming out of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and Latin America. Bear in mind, St. Vincent is also the president of CELAC at this time. So it really should be a very good time, a very productive and fruitful time for CARICOM, for countries like us. And it's really up to us to take best advantage of this opportunity in the interest of our people and the global community.
Well, certainly, Honourable Minister, I can agree that this is something that is not only for Trinidad and Tobago to celebrate in and be proud of. This is certainly an achievement and, by extension, a victory for all small island developing states. Does this election prove that though small island developing states are indeed vulnerable and perhaps their voices are not often heard, does this prove that they are not powerless?
Yes, indeed. And you're right, but it goes beyond just proving that we are not powerless in terms of our success in being elected by acclamation. What we now also have to do is to further prove that we can lead, because though we are small, we have a large profile, and now we have a large role to fulfill. But I always say that we are not just small island developing states, we're also large ocean developing states. And therefore, you have to also not just consider the size of our land mass, but you have to consider the size of our ocean spaces and also the strength of our people. Our education background is very strong compared to many other places in the world. And Ambassador Francis will really be the standard bearer of the best of Trinidad and Tobago. As I said at the beginning, it is my view that his performance will open further doors for Trinidad and Tobago, and also further doors for individuals with a background similar to his, coming from humble origins in Trinidad and Tobago, not being born with a golden spoon in his mouth at all, and really should be a beacon for young men and young women in our country, that if you choose the right path, a path of dedication, of integrity, of decency, you can get very far. You can get right to the top, notwithstanding what might seem to be advantages that others may possess. So stick with it, continue, press ahead on the journey, dedicate yourself fully to the task at hand, and you can get very, very far. Yes, in this same unfair world, it is possible for the best of us, the genuine ones, to rise to the very top. So I think there's so many lessons, there's so many causes for celebration and inspiration. I also want to underscore the fact that this successful candidature is not Trinidad and Tobago's first in the last few years at all. We've been laying down an extremely strong and enviable record of performance with candidates over the years. I prepared a list yesterday. Since 2015, we have every single candidate that we have offered in the international spaces, we've been successful at. And that is very, very unusual. And that speaks to a nation that knows what it's doing, and that's elaborating its foreign policy in a very strategic manner. And one of our major foreign policy objectives during this period was to have a successful run at the presidency. Titan, just imagine if we had not succeeded, as other countries have failed in the past. This is not an automatic assumption of a presidency, just because you come from the regional grouping that might be due under the rotation system. It's not automatic. And we've seen as recently as 2018, a member state of GRULAC failed because there was a competitive election, notwithstanding going through all the steps. And as recently as 2021, another member state from another regional grouping failed as well in a contested election. So the possibility of success was not a certainty. And if we had failed, we would have been very much exposed negatively. And that is those are the considerations that were weighing upon us that resulted in the selection by the cabinet. They ultimately made the decision of the best possible candidate from our country. We took it very seriously, and to ensure that we mounted a robust and strategic campaign, which was successful in that.
Certainly, and this is why it was, and it still is my hope that it is highlighted more, given the prestige. It's excellent news for Trinidad and Tobago. Beyond this, though, have plans been discussed as to how now does the President-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, as well as his team, what are the plans to ensure that the 193 member states of the United Nations are in a healthier position to achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as agreed upon in 2015, as well as the Our Common Agenda Agreement of 2022?
Yes, those discussions, in fact, that ethos formed very much the basis of the campaign. What we would want to see is a very productive session, and Ambassador Francis, having had the experiences that he has had, and certainly being in the UN system over the years, and also as a permanent representative in New York for the most recent sessions, would have a very keen sense of the accomplishments, but also the inertia and the swift passage of time during these sessions. It's just a year, and it's without a very dedicated and targeted effort, it would be very easy for a session to go by without meaningful accomplishments. So what I can tell you, Kitan, without going into too much detail, is that a lot of thought has gone into how the session will be structured. And again, I have every confidence, and Trinidad and Tobago can have every confidence that President-elect, or President-elect, His Excellency Dennis Francis, will lead this session in a very productive manner. Those elements are already in place, but we are seized with the knowledge that a large part of it is the elaboration of a strong team of support. It really cannot be a one-man show. And so both from here in Port of Spain and from other capitals, there's work taking place to help ensure that we have the strongest possible team that can help the president of this session deliver on the themes that would arise.
Honourable Minister, my final question to you. Previously, you've mentioned a polarized world. Every day, we are learning of more reports of issues that are associated with humanitarian crisis, social, political, and economic crisis. Geopolitical tensions are on the rise, and the United Nations General Assembly, they have the power to act on acts of aggression, on breaches of peace, even in the instances of a negative vote by permanent members of the Security Council. I know that you've mentioned His Excellency President-elect Dennis Francis, his experience, and how he is certainly the most suitable individual for this position. However, it is a mammoth responsibility, a great task in creating a more United Nations, in bringing together the world which is greatly divided as we speak. Why is now the right time for Trinidad and Tobago to lead from the front, from the helm of the United Nations General Assembly? Are we certain that we are prepared for the road ahead?
Good question. We are very much prepared for this road, and we are preparing even further at this time. Trinidad and Tobago has established a strong identity with respect to our association with multilateralism. That offers a different vision of the world. It offers a vision of a world that's not just struck between two sides or two poles. It speaks to the UN Charter and the importance and relevance of all the member states of the United Nations in arriving at solutions to the challenges that are before us. This is the spirit that we've campaigned with for this presidency, and that is the spirit that will guide, that's the ethos of the 78th session. What I've just described is the bread and butter of Dennis Francis. That's his language, that's his interface, that's his approach. It's very consistent with Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy, anchored in the UN Charter, anchored in multilateralism, anchored in respect for international law and the sovereignty of member states, and the role that we must all play in achieving solutions. So it may seem like an elusive goal, but we are of the strong view that those attributes, those elements, that approach is exactly what the international community requires at this time and can bring us much closer to our objectives, including the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's an approach that must focus on leaving no one behind at this stage of development.
Senator, the Honourable Dr. Amory Brown, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, my greatest thanks for you making the time to join us this morning and to share with us as we all celebrate a remarkable achievement indeed. It is a great responsibility, but once more congratulations to you, to President-elect His Excellency Dennis Francis and Team Trinidad and Tobago for a successful election campaign.
Thank you very much, Kitan. You and your media team are very much part of Team TNT, and I must say, all your listeners and viewers as well. So let us all be proud, and let us all put our shoulder to the wheel, both at home and in the international forum. God bless you. Have a great day.
Certainly, sir. Thank you very much, and to you as well. That was Senator the Honourable Dr. Amory Brown, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, joining me on AM Prime this morning as we speak about the year ahead, commencing from September at the 70th sitting of the United Nations General Assembly. President-elect His Excellency Ambassador Dennis Francis of Trinidad and Tobago will assume the role as President of the General Assembly as Team Trinidad and Tobago was successful in the election campaign, moving forward with a theme that is peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability. Certainly something that we should all be proud of and that we should celebrate in. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we'll continue this morning's discussions. Stay tuned to the program.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to AM Prime, and thank you for staying with me this morning as we continue the conversations. And we get into a topic now, one which is not highlighted at all, but one columnist, one journalist and author has taken the approach to highlight the unsung heroes in the war against crime. I am joined by Miss Debbie Jacob. Good morning, Miss Jacob.
Good morning.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. And the viewers are probably wondering precisely who are the unsung heroes that I am referring to in the new book that is yet to be published, but that you're currently working on.
Oh, well, it's finished and it has been accepted by an excellent publisher in the U.S., McFarland and Company, Inc., which operates in North Carolina. They are an academic publisher. They publish books for academic purposes that have a strong ability to cross over to general readership.
The focus of this book is on the Trinidad and Tobago Canine Unit, police dogs. Precisely why did you choose to focus on this particular arm of our security services?
Well, you know, as a journalist, there's always a story that you do that haunts you. And in 1992, I did a story with Corporal Leonard Dyer. He was begging for air-conditioned police vehicles to transport the dogs to their jobs. And I went to Caroni and I spoke to him, and he told me that the police dogs have files, just like police officers. Each dog has its own file. And he showed me, you know, where the files were in this annex. And I could never get that out of my mind. I wondered what could be in police dogs' files. What could they tell us about crime? So that story was just in the back of my head for years. And then Inspector Robin at the Mounted and Canine Branch spoke to Filbert. This book dates all the way back to Acting Commissioner Filbert. And he got me permission to see those files. No civilian had ever seen those files. And I had unprecedented access to canine officers for 14 years.
Wow.
So I interviewed officers I was able to get back to the second generation of officers in 1960. And so I interviewed some retired officers. The book spans a period of 70 years, from colonialism to independence to the Black Power movement, which is a very interesting time in the police dogs' history. The rise of the illegal drug trade, the age of terrorism, and how we, you know, prepared for that with dogs. I believe I have the first major arrest of Dole Chady. That was with a police dog named Shep in the early 70s they brought in, because they knew that, you know, people like Chady had drugs, illegal drugs, but they weren't finding them. And, you know, you could see in the police dog's file where the handler is shocked when the dog starts to find drugs buried in the yard.
Yes, but you said records date pre-independence Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, back to 1952.
That is incredible.
I could trace. I found the dogs' files back to the first 4 dogs. Theophilus Thomas, who had dog number 1, Bruno, wrote these extensive files, and they read like a B.S. Naipaul novel. He followed every movement of the dog, and the dog is running here, the dog is running there, but the dog is really never doing anything. It took the dog a long time, a couple years actually, before he had a case, a major case, and that was apprehending a man wanted for murder from Grenada, and it was all quite by accident. But the first dogs that came in, they were tactical dogs, the dogs that, run and chase and bring down a person, because a lot of the major crime at the time was stealing clothes from clotheslines in people's yards, gambling in front of cinemas, and the culprits would run away. So they brought these dogs so they could catch these people. And then, they started to work more with their tracking ability. They did a lot of work in the forests when the copper wire thieves came into the picture. And we're starting to read about that again. Copper wire thieves are still around.
Yes, yes.
And that preparation prepared the dogs for the work that they did in the Black Power movement. There was a lot of work that we've never really been aware of, that they did tracking down members of NUF, in the forest. Mm-hmm. They had a major case in St. Vincent that was related to the Black Power movement.
So
it's just a fascinating history.
Let's first focus on the Black Power movement. You've mentioned that it was an incredible time for the canine arm of the security services. Could you kindly elaborate further upon such statements?
Well, we didn't use the dogs as you see in pictures in the U.S., where they were used for crowd control and to break up crowds and to catch people who were just in the streets. But they did a lot of work in the forests, and like I said, they had been prepared for that work because of the work that they did with the copper wire thieves. Now, you will see throughout history, through the 50s up to, the book spans the 70 years of history for the canine branch. So it goes from 1952 to 2022. And you will read over and over again, canine officers talk about how difficult it is to track in the forest here. Mm-hmm. You walk in about a quarter of a mile and you're lost. So they often depended on the dogs to, they taught the dogs to backtrack so they would get them out if they were lost and things like that. The forests are very treacherous places to work, and criminals often hide there. So that was the main work that they did at the time. And then, like I said, they had a big case in St. Vincent, but they didn't know it was related to the Black Power movement. They were sent to St. Vincent to solve the murder of the acting attorney general. He was assassinated. Mm-hmm. And they got there, and the dog kept finding the accused, and the canine officers kept feeling that the police, the St. Vincent police, were letting the dogs go. Mm-hmm. But they didn't know that this was not just an assassination. It all had to do with the Black Power movement. It's kind of complicated, and it's set out in the book. But the guy who assassinated them got off on on a technicality because he robbed a place the same day, and they bundled the charges together, the murder and the and the robbery. So he got off, and I actually interviewed him in the book.
Wow. So there is a history of the Trans-Tobago Canine Unit actually being deployed regionally as well.
Yes, they often go to Guyana to do sweeps for cricket games. They were active in Belize, I believe, throughout the region. They have been active before, yes.
And I think that's rather incredible. But we had a very brief conversation off air before this interview started, and you expressed something. The technology, all the modern technology that we've invested in, even as it relates to national security, Sydney, the police dogs still seem to be the biggest positive or the biggest help in dealing with the situation that we're facing.
Yes, they can go places and do things that humans can't do. Their ability to track, their ability to find, drugs that are hidden, bombs. They're just remarkable, and we haven't found any technology that can replace them. Mm-hmm. So they're very, very important, and the history is interesting. It is a book. Like I said, I did a lecture in COSTAP for the policing class, the class that all the police officers have to take who are moving up in rank. And they were really interested in it. And the professor for that class is interested in using it as a text in his class because we don't have any books on policing in the Caribbean. They use books from Africa and different places. So this would be the first book that it has been done on policing. That's what I've been told by this professor.
Was that ever
just a good read?
No, excellent read, certainly, because I definitely would like to read this book. I mean, I think all, those who have a close companionship with a canine as well would be interested to see precisely how police operations are conducted with the use of canines. But beyond that, was that one of your intentions to actually fill a void of Caribbean-centric police texts?
That was the last thing on my mind. I thought it was an interesting read for people, and it came as a shock to me when this professor in COSTAP told me, and the publisher in the U.S., like I said, they are first and foremost a publisher of academic books, but they look for texts that they think are interesting enough that they could pass over to general readership. So their main focus is academic texts. So, it goes to show you that you can have academic texts that are interesting and are readable to people who just want a good book to read about crime, police dogs, criminals, history, Caribbean history. I think, particularly the first dog, Bruno, I think the 6 to 7 years that he worked are probably the best chronicle of crime in Trinidad. Like I said, the officer wrote such detailed reports that you would see at the bottom of the dog's files, you would see the seniors writing, "Must you write so much about this dog?" He just didn't leave any detail out. And then, like I said, when you have access to officers, of course, it was difficult. It was challenging in the beginning because of the gag order for public servants to get officers to open up and talk. But if you're around them for 14 years, they're bound to talk, Mm-hmm. The police gave me unprecedented access, no interference. I've been free to do whatever I want, speak to whoever I want, whenever I want. So it is a very unusual book and a very interesting look at crime and history. Let me also say they were very important in the steel band wars.
Really?
Yes. Kim Johnson, who's done those remarkable books on Pan, says that, you know, the police were afraid to go near these fracases, you know, and the police dogs were often used to break those up in the streets. I mean, there were dogs that worked out of Besson Street, and some of their main work was to tackle the police, the gang wars among the steel band players. So you learn so much about what police does. And the professor in Kostat said the book is very interesting to him also to use academically, because it shows a lot of the crime that doesn't make it to the media.
Precisely. I was about to comment on it, even when you mentioned the efforts of canines in dealing with the steel band wars. It goes to show, you know, you think you may know everything or you have an understanding of everything, and then such surprises pop up. But Ms. Jacob, we don't have much time left. Two more questions I'd like to get in. The first is, you know, you've mentioned that it's a very good read, even that the last thing on your mind was actually filling a void of Caribbean-centric police texts. So exactly what is it that you wanted to achieve in you know, producing and authoring this book? I'm grateful that you received the necessary support and access, and that certainly, in a way, will create a sense of inspiration. But what is it that Debbie Jacob really hoped or wanted and wants to achieve with the publication of this book?
Well, to me, I always saw it as parallel to the work that I do in prison. My whole life has been dedicated to give a voice to the voiceless, and I felt, you know, the voiceless, unsung heroes in crime were these dogs. I also thought it would be an interesting read for anybody who is interested in dogs. And as I went along, I realized that it was an interesting way to look at 70 years of history. It was a different angle. So it just sort of evolved into that academic purpose that actually became the main purpose of the book. And what's most interesting to me is that after 14 years, I was sweating bullets, so to speak, because I couldn't find in the handful of nonfiction publishers here anybody interested in it. Mm-hmm. And I sent it to one publisher in England who does Caribbean books. They didn't seem to be interested in it. And this publisher, a remarkable publisher in the US, an independent publisher, but, you know, a very reputable publisher of academic works, grabbed it in a matter of days. And I think that speaks a lot, again, to our penchant for ignoring interesting nonfiction coming out of this region. I just can't imagine anybody, even if you thought I didn't write the book well, which is not going to be the case for me, but even if you thought that, how could you possibly not think that somebody who gets their hands on secret police dog files and access to police officers like that doesn't have a book worth publishing?
Yes.
And this is the problem that we're facing with nonfiction writers, I find, in the Caribbean. It's very, very difficult for us to get traction.
I think you've just actually, you know, hinted at another topic of discussion, of which we can have another day. It's an excellent topic, actually. But as we conclude, you've said that this is also a part of a series, Dogs of Our World series. Is this a series that you are working on, or is it a collaborative effort to actually produce the series?
McFarland has a very interesting series called Dogs in Our World. And, you know, there are different books in there, like, you know, somebody who has a service dog. So each one of the books has a focus, a theme to it. So the Trinidad and Tobago police dogs are going to be in that. The book doesn't have a title right now. I submitted it with a title, which was Crime Bites, but they don't think they want to use that. So we're just trying to decide on the title for it right now, because Again, it has to be something that would bridge academic and general readership. Somebody had suggested to me In Dogs We Trust. I submitted that, I don't know. But this publisher, I mean, it's McFarland and Company, Inc. And if you look on their website, they publish the most interesting books you ever want to see. They're really, really quite an interesting publisher.
Well, Ms. Jacob, your book now will soon be there on their website. But congratulations and thank you once more for the work that you're doing. It's incredible, and even highlighting these issues of which we don't often hear of, we don't often think of. So it's incredible the work that you're doing, and thank you for that, and congratulations to you on this publication. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Jacob, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me this morning. Have a great day.
You too.
That was
Bye.
Goodbye. Miss Debbie Jacob joining me on AM Prime this morning, speaking about her publication, yet to be completely titled, Crime Bites, In Dogs We Trust. You never know, but as it comes out, we'll be sure to update you here on AM Prime. Well done to her work and to her services, and we wish her all the very best as she continues her excellent job. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime for WESN's News on the Hour. When we return, we'll continue this show. We'll be back. This is your WESN News on the Hour. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2023 road death figure hits 48. Gas station proprietor robbed during home invasion in Dewe. Security officer being fined $35,000 for trafficking marijuana in Sangre Grande. In regional news, Bahamian officials detained 22 foreigners in possible human smuggling ring. With the details, I'm Keaton Shaw. 3 bandits who robbed the owner of a gas station in Dewe are currently on the run from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. 77-year-old Molly Diokanan, the proprietor of Checkers service station situated at Dewe Trace, said she was at home asleep when she was abruptly awakened by a loud sound around 2:45 a.m. on Monday morning. Diokanan investigated, only to be confronted by the intruders, who were wearing dark-colored clothing as well as masks. One of the robbers swiftly seized Diokanan's prized possession, a gold bearer valuated at $1,000, along with an iPhone 7 worth $2,000 and the keys to her business establishment. The suspects then grabbed a black wallet containing $2,100 in cash, 2 gold rings valued at $5,000, and 3 watches from her nightstand, before making their escape through a window at the northern side of the house. The rainy season officially started on June 1st, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is advising the public to remain alert. 2 road traffic accidents on Monday morning, which claimed the lives of 4 persons, brought the 2023 road death figure to 48, compared to 44 for the same period in 2022. According to police reports, around 4 a.m., a black Toyota RAV4 with 5 occupants, which was proceeding east along the priority bus route in the vicinity of the Aruca police station, collided with a silver Nissan B15 with 4 occupants, which was proceeding west on the PBR. A 33-year-old and a 22-year-old, both from Kelly Village, Carney, and occupants of the B15 lost their lives, while the driver, 30 years from the Kelly Village, succumbed to his injuries this afternoon. Meanwhile, in another incident, around 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning, a grey Toyota Hilux was proceeding north along the southern main road in McBean, Couva, with 3 occupants. The driver then collided with a parked Nissan truck. A 30-year-old of McBean, Couva died at the scene of the accident, while the other occupants received injuries and were taken to the Couva hospital. A 45-year-old man who pleaded guilty to possession of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking, charged at the Sangre Grande Magistrates Court, was fined $35,000. Richard Phillip of Paria Main Road, Grand River Village was also given 12 months to pay the fine, or in default serve 3 years of hard labour. The accused was charged by officers of the Eastern Divisional Gang and Intelligence Unit following a surveillance exercise into the illicit narcotic trade in the Toko district. According to a police report, at 11 a.m. last Saturday, officers started the operation during which they monitored the driver of a black hatchback Toyota Yaris in the Grand River area. The vehicle then left that district and began heading south along the Toko Main Road and continued into the Sangregani Police District. Officers intercepted the vehicle, where a search led to the discovery of 3 bales of marijuana wrapped in clear plastic weighing 1.6 kilograms. The narcotics have an estimated street value of $24,000. In regional news, Bahamian officials said they've detained 22 foreigners, including 2 children, on Sunday after intercepting a 32-foot vessel in Bahamian waters carrying a United States flag in a possible human smuggling ring. Police press liaison officer Chief Superintendent Crystalyn Skippings told reporters that they are going to remain firm and relentless in their pursuit to find out if persons were engaging in human smuggling. She said the group included 13 men, 6 women, 2 children, and 1 infant from Ecuador, Italy, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, as well as Brazil. They were reportedly on their way to North America. That's news of the hour here on WESN. I'm Keaton Shah. Thank you for watching. I have more for you at the top of the hour.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is one of the most common issues faced by women of reproductive age in Trinidad and Tobago?
So we see more patients with polycystic if they're obese, but there are the small-belled patients who also have polycystic ovaries.
What other treatment options are there available for these girls? What's up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinidadians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital, where there is a public health emergency, a growing crisis here in Trinidad and Tobago. And, well, I often wonder, is it contagious? Because it seems as though one person starts, another person starts, it just goes on and on. What am I speaking about? Noise pollution. And that's a conversation which I firmly believe has just... It's funny enough, it's not been highlighted enough. It's happening all the time, but it's not highlighted enough. And this morning, I'm pleased to welcome Citizens Against Noise Pollution Trinidad and Tobago Public Relations Officer, Ms. Tamara Chetar. She's with us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shah. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having us today.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully in a moment we could be joined by Ms. Lindy Ann Beachu. So as we start the interview, I'd just like to share some information of which you mentioned, which you highlighted at the Joint Select Committee meeting, that an EMA statement indicated that noise pollution was the #1 complaint at the EMA's hotline with the years 2018 to 2022, so over a 4-year period, receiving close to 1,000 calls over that 4-year period, 250 calls at least on average per year. That is incredible. But as you know, to start this conversation, has there been a complete disregard and a lack of enforcement for the existing noise pollution legislation in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, there has, and I'll tell you, but I cannot blame the TTPS fully. After examining the laws and seeing what they have to deal with, they don't have the proper equipment. We've sort of seen a kind of tennis ball thing over the years where the EMA passes the buck to the TTPS and vice versa. And it has become us getting to the bottom of really who is responsible for the different types of enforcement, whether it be bars, whether it be private homes, whether it be parties and fetes and so forth, because the issues are very complex one and very layered. Because we have so many types of different types of noise pollution. What's happening now, I can tell you, after coming out of the Joint Select Committee meeting, we did have preliminary a meeting with the senior part of the TTPS, and they are very, very keen on working with us to curb this issue. And we're actually quite relieved and I must say excited to work with them. We've got nothing but cooperation from the TTPS, but we realize, you know, where the shortfalls are.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we continue, and thank you for your response, I believe we are joined by Ms. Lindy Ann Bechu. All right, she's actually still joining the conversation, so she should be with us in a moment or two. But you mentioned that you cannot blame the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. There still seems to be some level of, I suppose, misunderstanding as to precisely who are those that are responsible. However, given that there isn't that level of clarity, is it that the existing legislation is not sufficient? Or is it that it's just sufficient, we just don't know?
Definitely, I feel that the legislation is not sufficient. It was written so many years ago when technology was, we didn't even have the types of sound equipment people are using right now. There's no, we don't have any legality where in terms of decibels of what you can play in a bar as opposed to a restaurant, as opposed to your homes. And it's really archaic when you look at the laws. Mm-hmm. I would let Lindy Ann come in on this a little bit more as she's just joined us.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Bechu. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for joining Ms. Chetar and myself. As she was just mentioning whether or not the existing legislation that deals with noise pollution, whether or not it is indeed strong enough, or whether or not it is just simply something that we do not understand. Ms. Chetar was mentioning that she believes it's archaic when you look at it. Could you expand on that, please?
Of course. What we have found over the years, both Tamara and myself, our personal struggles is that we had to get familiar with the law, and the average citizen in Trinidad and Tobago also has to go through that struggle because the laws are not generally posted or postulated out there for people to be aware. And one of the things that we would have found is that the laws themselves are vague. They're general. They do not deal with specific sources of noise. So for instance, under the Summary and Offences Act, the noise, it's generated under a public nuisance, right? However, this does not allow for people who are being disturbed by commercial establishments from open air fetes, which is right now currently, it's in the I think the Court of Appeal. Wild Goose Entertainment has taken the EMA to task, and it's in the courts, right? So they're basically saying that the EMA does not have the power to shut them down. So we have various sources of noise that is not covered because we are having a serious problem in Trinidad and Tobago, whereby the police are stating that their hands are tied and that they this is not their purview. And the EMA is saying as well, residential noise does not fall under our remit either. So the laws themselves need to be adjusted to more developed country status because it's pretty archaic as it stands right now.
Well, I'm confused, ladies. If there was a complaint to be made about noise pollution and continued disturbances, do I make it to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service or to the EMA?
And that's the exact conundrum that faces the average citizen in our country. So the EMA's remit is industrial and commercial noise. So for instance, establishments, bars, any type of industrial noise like that, it's supposed to be reported to them. However, residential noise, it is again postulated that it is supposed to be reported to the TTPS. We have the challenge of when we report such complaints to the TTPS that we are met with, that is not our job, that's not our responsibility. You all need to call the EMA to deal with something like that. And we are left, right, citizens are left with no one to turn to because we are not sure exactly who after hours, right, who we are supposed to contact, because a lot of the noise that happens here, it happens after hours. The EMA's office is from 8 a.m. to I think 4 p.m., right? And the TTPS is telling us, well, this is, they downright tell us that, they don't have the resources, they do not have the meters to deal with this problem. So citizens are just left to deal with it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Chater, is it that reports of noise pollution, whether it be to the EMA or to the TTPS, because as mentioned, citizens are left to deal with it. It's up to them. Is that it's treated as non-emergencies?
Well, the thing is, yes, to answer your question, yes, it is not an emergency, but it brings another thing to light and how this affects, how this is a national health emergency now. This is affecting mental health. This is affecting physical health. A lot of invisible illnesses. We're not seeing how this affects people. Children that are studying is a huge issue. Right now we are getting hundreds of complaints, hundreds. And we're getting this weekly about neighbors that just maybe, they're just not educated about how this affects us physically. A funny thing is, when we were talking at TTPS, we were talking about how criminals are not born. Mm-hmm. And we had to say that, activists as well, we're not born. We're born from years of torture, years of abuse. And if something positive can come out of this, it would be something that our country has not seen in a long time, because they say they respond to us by saying this is our culture. And of course we love our music. We don't want to be against the party and but we want to have our basic right, our human right to peace in the sanctity of our homes. That is what we're asking for. We're not asking people not to be able to make money, but we also have to be able to survive and function at our jobs when we have to, and make our own money as well. So if we have to put a dollar value on the effects of noise pollution and how much money we actually lose, if we're going to talk about a dollar value, it's going to be in the millions of dollars.
I think you've also raised an excellent point there to begin with, and that is the cost associated with it goes beyond just monetary. You've mentioned health as well. Ms. Beju, stress disorders, even instances of people having suicidal thoughts stemming from such torture and torment. It goes without little to no redress at all.
You're right. And I'm glad you brought up that, because we have testimonial evidence. For instance, we would have asked our members to document, right, their the effects that noise pollution has had on them. And I remember getting a particular testimonial from a young mother, and she would have been tortured for days by her neighbor, and there was no real help. And in her testimonial, she would have stated that when she went to visit the doctor, she had to be put on antidepressants because the noise was affecting her so much that she was afraid to go home, because there's this anxiety that used to grip her that she could not handle. And then you are not getting any response in from the TTPS, and then the EMA is saying this is not their remit, and she's left to deal with this. So she was on medication. Her children and all was suffering. They had to sleep with headphones. No one except a victim of noise pollution knows what it is to sleep with an earplug or trying to sleep with a noise-canceling headphones. And people will say, well, listen, you need to fix your home, right? You need to block off the sound. Well, it's time establishments as well as private citizens recognize their responsibility as well. These establishments in particular that have loud amplifying devices also need to enclose their spaces, because one man's, business should not be disturbing the sleep and health of another citizen. And this is where we are finding ourselves at this point. I also remember another testimonial, again, of a mother. Her children started to suffer from stress and anxiety. We had another testimonial from a father who his son was actually kicked out of Zoom meetings when we were online last year, right? Because the noise was so much that the teacher actually told the parents that he is banned from participating in the classes because the feedback and the type of content that was playing in the background was inappropriate.
Through no fault of his own?
None. So he was deprived of part of his education for quite a while in terms of participation, and I think he was in primary school.
This is absolutely ridiculous, because so many statements, so many one-liners that both you ladies have mentioned this morning, the latest of which I wish I can just cut and paste all over the country is the personal responsibility of private citizens. These private businesses should not be disturbing the lives of others, and it should not be, it's extremely unfortunate. And I know of many instances throughout the nation as well in which residents have complained, and there, again, very little response. Citizens Against Noise Pollution, though, and I'm coming back to you, Ms. Chater, you said that there's been an increase in the number of complaints that we're seeing a continued rise. Is Citizens Against Noise Pollution, they're advocates, yes, they're activists, but are they powerless in trying to assist in dealing with these situations? Because though you've appeared for a joint select committee, what happens beyond just the conversations?
What we're doing is acting as a pressure group. I'll tell you, we did not think that we would ever come in front of the Joint Select Committee. We didn't think we would get a meeting with the TTPS. So what I think we have been doing is acting as a pressure group to give people hope that in numbers we can make a difference. We have been beaten, I'll tell you, mentally for years. Like if we were powerless, like if we could not do something. But we are seeing by these small steps that people are listening. We are giving people hope, and the more that join us, the more that speak out about it, the more that actually make official police reports, and they are investigated. Because it's not none of them are investigated. It's just that we know the TTPS is overwhelmed. We know that they don't have the resources. So we do not, it's not like we just go to the TTPS and say, oh, they're not helping us. But if we come in numbers and we get together and we actually speak out and document the evidence that it is there and this is a problem, I believe we're making a difference. And I mean, just us being here, Kitan, I thank you so much for having us, because you're giving us a voice. And by giving us a voice, more and more people are going to join and talk about their experiences. And that's the issue we have a lot of in this country. People are not open. We're criticized when we are open. There's a lot of heat on our backs, I could tell you, with Lindy and myself. You know, we get a lot of threats when we speak out in communities. We know what's happening in the country.
Yes.
But it allows us to have a voice. And if you cannot rest in your home, then how can you continue to exist?
Yes,
what
precisely.
Is it? So
both you ladies are even risking yourselves in order to create a greater voice so that it may actually, you know, be louder than the noise pollution that is produced by inconsiderate individuals. I would just only ask one final question, and that is simple. Generally speaking, I know you said that there are some cases that are investigated, but there are also experiences where, you know, okay, let them party, let them have a good time. It's just noise. Has that been a common response?
All the time, every day.
Yes.
Every day.
Very much so.
And how does one even, I know the TTPS is stretched. I understand resources are at this point in time very precious, and you have to utilize them as best as you can. But generally speaking, how does one even have a level of confidence in the TTPS if it is that simple matters such as these are not actually, at least if we go and see what is taking place, you know, is that often again something that is experienced by your membership?
Yeah, go ahead.
We actually do have very sometimes kind officers that reach out, and we would like to take the opportunity at this point, in particular, to commend Inspector Roger Alexander, as well as Mr. Zahir Ali, who reached out to us last week, because they are very much willing and supportive of our efforts to close this gap where citizens are basically, you know, being tortured. And at this point in time, we would like to tell our citizens, you need to make your reports. Join our Facebook group. It's Citizens Against Noise Pollution in Trinidad and Tobago. Go and make your reports, because these reports are going to be instrumental when there are investigations into the number of reports nationwide. And we would also like to advocate at this point in time for a change in legislation to give the TTPS the power that they need and the resources that they need to tackle this issue, as well as the EMA. We are not in this fight to fight down and local balance anyone. We want to work with all stakeholders because we recognize this is a national issue. The UN Frontiers report of last year, which is a report that deals with human health, would have actually stated that noise pollution is growing globally. And there are key people, there are key demographics that are affected by noise pollution, such as pregnant women, the elderly, children, and shift workers. Right? So Tamara hinted on something earlier, which was that noise pollution is becoming a health hazard, and it is in fact the truth, the absolute truth, because one might think that a party or a couple of hours is not going to hurt, but you can add up those hours. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when the body needs to rest, when your clock needs to reset, when your children are at home trying to rest, the elderly who are sick and the infirm, and you add up those 10 hours that sometimes from 4 to 3 a.m. and all of these things that this music is blasting from, and you add up 10 hours, that's 30 hours one weekend, and you add that up for the month, it's coming to the loss of productivity and ill health in this country. And we need to understand that, yes, we have a business, and yes, we have a right to play music in our own home, but that right does not override other citizens' constitutional rights.
Certainly. We've gone over time, but very quickly, one more time, Ms. Bechu, could you just kindly remind citizens where they can make their reports?
Of course. For residential noise, please go to your nearest TTPS station, right? For anything that is deemed commercial or industrial noise, you have to report in the Environmental Management Authority. There's a WhatsApp number. You can also email them. You can call, right? But it is imperative, and I want citizens to understand, they have to make those reports. It may seem that it's not going to go anywhere, but it is, because at this point in time, Parliament is investigating nationwide how many reports that we have. So for this issue to be tackled in a systematic manner, these reports must be made. Do not be afraid to make the reports.
I'm terrible at my timing, but very quickly, if possible, any one of you ladies, if there is a commercial business, privately owned but commercial in a residential area, who do you make the report to exactly? Because that's a difficulty as well.
That's also a difficulty which was brought up in the Joint Select Committee as well, because there are businesses that are operating in mixed areas.
Yeah.
But if it is commercial, it still goes to the EMA.
Understood.
At this point in time, yeah. But
Citizens...
the short-term measure should be run into the TTPS because the EMA has no after-hours hotline.
Yeah.
So they are more long-term in dealing with the problem rather than getting immediate relief. And that's the conundrum we have right now.
Well, for more information and to share your experiences, you can go to Citizens Against Noise Pollution, TT, their social media page, and you can join that group. Have your voice heard, because honestly, as much as you can, shouting over the noise, trying to get your voice across, it's only going to lead to more health crisis. But at this time, Ms. Lindy Ann Bechu, Ms. Tamara Chetar, thank you very much for joining me this morning on AM Prime, and I can only hope that this is just one part to greater solutions to come.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much, ladies. Well, folks, that's where we actually conclude this morning's edition of AM Prime. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a beautiful day here in Trinidad and Tobago. The sun, my journey to work this morning was blessed by a beautiful sunrise, and I can only hope it's a good day ahead, maybe a positive one. People, you have a personal responsibility. Please do it. Be kind, be considerate, be mature. Those are things that we must all practice if we are to make Trinidad and Tobago a bit sweeter. I'll see you again tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock. Bye-bye.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have